Yes, this is my title page. It's a great honor to be here as one of the chapter authors of the Routledge Handbook of Soft Power, the second edition. And then this is my flow. The presentation follows 4 sections as my chapter offers. First, South Korea's adaptation of soft power to give you background of the case study and to justify the significance of the case selection. And second, conceptual framework to analyze the case in a more sophisticated way, which has never been explored thus far. And third, South Korea's civic virtues of the power. Based on my conceptual framework, South Korean case is analyzed through the lens of civic virtues of the power. Lastly, I will explain what are findings and implications of the study. Let me begin with these 2 pictures. South Korea is often described as miracle of a Han River. The picture on the left were taken near Han River in the 1950s, and the one on the right in recent years. So you may find a vivid contrast between 2 pictures, from rubbles to economy powerhouse, and a great transition from a recipient country to a donor country. So what made this great transition in 70 years? I explored the country with the concept of civic virtues of the power. Aim of the study is to discover the distinctive characteristics of South Korea's soft power with regard to its uniqueness in national power formulations. And my research question is, what are the characteristics of South Korea's soft power? Theoretical background is from Naren Chitty's Civic Virtues Soft Power, and the scope of research is to compare 6 administrations since the first civilian president in the early 1990s. It's more than 30 years. To give you historical background of the country, in the 1950s, South Korea, one of the world's poorest countries, had an underdeveloped agrarian economy that depended heavily on foreign aid. And then the Korean economy became industrialized during the 1960s to 70s. The country was recognized as rapid poverty reduction and economic advancement. In the 1980s, there was a transition, not only economic success, but also political democratization. Especially the pro-democratization in 1987 made the country truly liberal state. So the country successfully hosted the Seoul Olympics in the following year. Eventually, South Korea had the first civilian president in 1993. Since the 1990s, South Korea became a truly democratic country with a highly developed economy, regardless of Asian financial crisis. In the 21st century, South Korea has begun to recognize perception changes, self-awareness, and others' acknowledgement about the country's standing in world politics, from middle power to high power nations, particularly when the country was invited to G7 meeting since 2020. As for the soft power formulation, the South Korean government was very keen to cultivate its reputation. Cultural diplomacy in 1999, National Image Committee in 2002, and Presidential Council on Nation Branding in 2009 were important mechanisms to enhance the country's soft power. And in practice, soft power in Korea has been operationalized most prominently through K-pop culture, which is called Hallyu since 1990. Since 2010, soft power has served as a policy window for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to implement new pillar of public diplomacy, along with two other main foreign policies, policy advocacy and economic diplomacy. According to the Public Diplomacy Act, Ministry of Foreign Affairs has taken a leading role in promoting communications between governments and foreign publics in pursuit of soft power. Then, what is the characteristic of South Korea's soft power? I will introduce the conceptual framework of the study. According to Naren Chitty, there are 4 types of makeup that explain civic virtue soft power with 2 vectors, called internal I soft power, which is formed between governments and people through dialogic approach, and external E soft power that carried from one society to the external world. And makeup 1 virtue is construction of beauty related to such as heritage or contemporary values. And makeup 2 virtuosity is competence, including beauty and brilliance that enhances E external soft power. And makeup 3 reconciliation is related to virtue, harmonizing process in terms of opposing beliefs, ideas, or contexts. Makeup 4 composition means messaging and communication styles that accentuate the presentation of content, stories, or assets. By visualizing these concepts, I found missing areas indicating A, B, C as shown in the right figure. By taking Naren Chitty's reconciliation makeup 3 as one of the soft power effectiveness, I defined A area as leadership effect. Then that enhances the efficacy of soft power, such as trustworthiness, solidarity, and integrity. B area as value clash effect, which means that when a state communicates negatively despite using virtue-based strategy. C area as propaganda that increases the degree of trust convergence or trust divergence. Based on this conceptual framework, 3 determinants of soft power concepts are construction, competence, and communication, including I, internal, and E, external soft power. And therefore, 4 types of soft power effectiveness: reconciliation, leadership, value clashes, and propaganda can be found. So this study examined South Korea's behaviors by comparing 6 administrations. During President Kim Il-sung from 1993 to 1998, and President Kim Dae-jung from 1998 to 2003, incubated soft power resources of the country. First, internationalization movement of the government gave a positive impact on people's post-colonial consciousness, such as colonialism, foreign interventions, civil war, and ideological confrontation between North Korea and South Korea. By projecting country as an international actor, such as hosting the mega sporting events, Asian Games in 1986 and the Seoul Olympics in 1988. And second, people empowerment. So-called 386 generation, who were born in the 1960s and were in their 30s in the 1980s, influenced civil society of the country and made possible the emergence of civil society and civic power. Third, government-led policies to protect domestic cultural industries. For example, the establishment of Cultural Industry Bureau in 1994 and the Motion Picture Promotion Law in 1995. And there was cultural influx from the West and Japan. So this cultural influx came with the liberal values, individual rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and a market economy. And also, there was Asian financial crisis in 1997. But that crisis helped the government policy reforms and innovations. For example, government subsidies for domestic cultural industries that laid the groundwork for Hallyu. Lastly, co-hosting the World Cup with Japan in 2002 allowed Korean citizens to gain self-confidence as they overcame the residual feelings of suppression and animosity stemming from 35 years of Japanese colonialism. Therefore, in this period, South Korea established good governance with democracy by enhancing both internal and external soft power, which became resources of the country's soft power. The second period is the institutionalization of soft power through foreign policy behaviors from 2003 to 2017 during 노무현, 이명박, and 박근혜 presidencies. As I mentioned before, there were three mechanisms of state-driven soft power operated with the establishment of public diplomacy and international cultural relations. So once again, I will repeat: the Nation Image Committee, the Presidential Council on Nation Branding, establishment of public diplomacy governance. And second, the institutionalization process of soft power mechanisms became the government capability to exercise contextual intelligence in accordance with the appropriate behaviors of the country and to strengthen external ease of the power. Lastly, the synergy of public policies became the cause of the positive impact of Hallyu abroad. So it surely laid the foundation of the contemporary cultural contents of Hallyu. Therefore, in this period, civic virtue rooted in cultural industries and amplified by private sector actors, or I can say private initiatives. So the entertainment business in the private sector have substantially developed a Korean popular culture. And bureaucrats have helped to spread it around the globe. So this made the country cultural powerhouse in recent years. Nonetheless, intended outcomes of soft power construction did not reach the country's expectations, largely due to inconsistencies in government policies. Thus far, the effect of positive reconciliation or leadership or negative value clashes or propaganda, communication effects remain questionable at this stage. The last stage, the period, transition to a new government, President Moon Jae-in, from 2017 and 2022. And now we have new government, President Yoon Suk-yeol. After the impeachment of the previous president, that is the emergence of civic power with active public engagements. First, Korea's civic power through candlelight vigil protest, overturning the previous administration, with a high demand for civic virtues, such as justice, trust, equality, and publicness, as well as aspirations, to gain a high degree of good governance from the new government. Second, people-driven civic virtue soft power. Moving beyond state-driven soft power construction and enhancing the level of competence of ordinary citizens in public administration. Third, with the emergence of civic power, reconciliation was shown in the peaceful sentiment between the North and the South during the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. So we noticed virtuosic behaviors from both the government and the people that led the country to the exertion of soft power in world politics. Also, the institutionalization of NGO support and people-centered policies to facilitate public engagement and raise high degree of active public participation. Therefore, this period, civic virtue soft power has been accumulated through various policy tools. As a result, civic power can be found in various dimensions of Korean society. So lastly, reconciliation, as soft power effectiveness is found. So these are my findings of the study. The first periods from early 1990s to the early 2000s fits into a model of soft power construction because fundamental civic virtues such as liberal values and democracy were cultivated and developed during this period. The first civilian president and the end of the long authoritarian military government meant the rebuilding of South Korea's identity, values, rule of law, and laid the groundwork for democratic governance. So in this period, South Korea created high-quality internal soft power and prospective external soft power, despite a lack of soft power effectiveness. And the second period from the mid-2000s to early 2010s. State-driven vehicles developed soft power and enabled the government to adopt contextual intelligence while achieving external soft power and taking initiatives on public engagement through public diplomacy and international cultural relation policies. However, soft power effectiveness hasn't yet to be achieved. The last period, from the late 2010s to early 2020s, of emerging civic power with active public engagement entailed soft power competence. Based on civil society, civil diplomacy, people-centered politics, that made soft power effectiveness possible. And then that became a form of reconciliation, as shown in the candlelight vigil protest or the peace process on the Korean peninsula. Some implications from the South Korea's civic virtue soft power. First, construction and composition of civic virtue soft power were possible largely due to state-driven efforts, which means that good public policy and consistent public administration can be important factors that contribute to success in developing soft power resources. And second, competence should be based on the maturity and autonomy of civil society, while led by active public engagement, supported by the government. Third, contextual intelligence can be a significant element as one of the precedents of civic virtue soft power. Fourth, the importance of statecraft in the process of soft power development. So South Korean case public diplomacy and international cultural relations policies became the important policy measures for South Korea's civic virtue soft power. Lastly, the significance of civil society with citizen empowerment. Civic power can be established in the country's context in which the country's soft power takes place. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. And if you have any questions or comments, I'm really happy to be with you.